The legend of Mike Tyson is often told through highlights, through looping clips of knockouts that last seconds and leave crowds roaring. But when you strip away the spectacle, what remains is something far more unsettling and far more fascinating. Mike Tyson was not merely a champion who beat other champions. He was a collision point in boxing history, a moment where ambition, talent, and destiny ran headfirst into something unstoppable. For many fighters, the night they faced Tyson did not feel like a loss. It felt like an ending. Careers that were built over decades collapsed in minutes. Futures that seemed inevitable vanished under the lights. The belts moved on. The crowd moved on. The sport moved on. But the men who stood across from Mike Tyson were never quite able to do the same. This is the story of those nights. Not just the punches, but the before and the after. The confidence that existed before the bell rang, and the emptiness that followed when it stopped. Because when Mike Tyson destroyed careers, he didn't always do it with cruelty. He did it with certainty. Michael Spinks was the embodiment of boxing intelligence. Long before Mike Tyson ever challenged him, Spinks had already solved puzzles that others couldn't even begin to understand. He had conquered the light heavyweight division with a style that blended awkward movement, sharp timing, and almost uncanny ability to neutralize power. When he moved up to heavyweight and defeated Larry Holmes, it felt like the sport itself had shifted. Holmes was not just a champion. He was a measuring stick for greatness. And Spinks beat him twice. Cleanly, decisively. The idea that Michael Spinks could be intimidated seemed absurd. For years, Spinks was undefeated. 30 fights, 30 victories, titles across divisions, respect from legends. Analysts spoke of him as a thinker, a chess player in a sport often dominated by brute force. His name was already whispered alongside the greats. One more defining moment, one more victory against the right opponent, and he would no longer be discussed as a potential all-time great. He would simply be one. That opponent was Mike Tyson. The build-up to their fight carried an unusual tension. Spinks spoke confidently, insisting that Tyson's aggression could be unraveled, that his pressure could be managed. He talked about angles, about discipline, about patience. And yet, behind the scenes, something felt wrong. In the dressing room, Tyson was pacing, punching holes in walls, radiating an energy that unsettled everyone who came near him. This wasn't rage. It was focus sharpened to a terrifying point. When the bell rang, the difference between preparation and reality became obvious in seconds. Spinks tried to jab, to establish distance, to control the pace. Tyson walked straight through it. There was no hesitation, no respect for reputation, no allowance for past achievements. Every step Tyson took forward erased space. Every punch carried intent. Spinks was not being outboxed. He was being overwhelmed. The first knockdown came like a shockwave. Spinks hit the canvas in disbelief, rising with urgency but not with confidence. The second knockdown erased any remaining illusion that this was a competitive fight. When Tyson's right hand sent Spinks flat on his back, the count felt ceremonial. The fight was already over. 91 seconds. That was all it took. What followed was silence. Michael Spinks never fought again. No comeback. No farewell bout. No redemption arc. The undefeated champion, the man who had beaten Larry Holmes, walked away from boxing entirely. His career didn't fade. It stopped, and in doing so, it became inseparable from Mike Tyson's legend. Spinks had been great, but Tyson was final. If Spinks represented calculated brilliance undone, Buster Douglas represented youthful confidence crushed by reality. Douglas entered the boxing world with swagger, talent, and momentum. He was undefeated, energetic, and hungry. People spoke of him as a rising star, a man who had all the tools to shape the next era of heavyweight boxing. He didn't fear Mike Tyson. He believed he could handle him. That belief wasn't entirely unfounded. Early in their fight, Douglas showed resilience. He moved well, absorbed punishment, and even managed to back Tyson up at moments. For 2 rounds, he did something few had done before him. He survived. The crowd felt it. Commentators felt it. There was a flicker of uncertainty in the air. But Mike Tyson did not panic. He observed. He adjusted. In the 3rd round, the tempo shifted. Tyson closed distance with sharper timing. slipping punches and setting traps. When the uppercut landed, it landed clean. Douglas went down hard, his body folding under the force. The fight was over almost instantly after that. The rising star had fallen, and with him fell the future many had projected. Douglas fought only a few more times after that night. He never regained the momentum he once had. The confidence that defined him early on evaporated, replaced by caution and inconsistency. At 26 years old, his career effectively ended. Mike Tyson didn't just beat him. He froze him in time as a what could have been. Donovan Ruddock was different. He wasn't a technician or a prodigy. He was raw power and unfiltered aggression. He tore through opponents with reckless abandon, bullying his way up the rankings. Ruddock believed intimidation was strength. He spoke boldly, insulted freely, and acted as though fear itself bent to his will. To him, Mike Tyson was not an obstacle. He was a target. The fight was chaos from the opening bell. Both men traded with ferocity, neither willing to give ground. Ruddock had moments where he landed heavy shots, moments that made even Tyson's most loyal supporters uneasy. The crowd sensed danger. The fight felt volatile, unpredictable, alive. But Tyson thrived in that environment. He absorbed pressure and turned it into fuel. As rounds passed, Ruddock's aggression began to cost him. His movement slowed. His defenses opened. And in the 7th round, Tyson unleashed a combination so precise and so devastating that the referee had no choice but to intervene. Ruddock never reached the same heights again. He continued fighting, but the mystique that once surrounded him was gone. His dominance had been exposed as fragile. Tyson didn't just stop him in the ring. He stopped the narrative that Ruddock was unstoppable. Trevor Berbick's story is inseparable from history. He was the man who faced Muhammad Ali in Ali's final fight, a bout that left the boxing world conflicted and uneasy. Berbick won, but the victory carried a shadow. Watching that fight as a young boy, Mike Tyson felt something ignite within him. A promise formed. One day, he would avenge Ali. Years later, that promise became reality. Berbick entered the ring as champion. Tyson entered with purpose. From the opening bell, Tyson attacked with ferocity, targeting Berbick's body and head with relentless combinations. Berbick tried to defend, tried to endure, but the onslaught was too much. When he went down and attempted to stand, his legs betrayed him. He stumbled, collapsed again, and was counted out. It was one of the most iconic knockouts in boxing history. Berbick fought on for years afterward, but he never reclaimed the spotlight. His legacy became defined not by his championship, but by the night Mike Tyson took it from him. Tony Tucker believed he could outthink Mike Tyson. Taller, longer, undefeated, Tucker entered their fight with confidence bordering on arrogance. Early on, he landed clean shots. He tested Tyson's chin. For the first time, fans saw Tyson take punishment without immediately ending the fight. But Tyson adapted. He used head movement, footwork, and relentless pressure to break Tucker down over 12 rounds. What began as a tactical contest turned into a war of attrition that Tucker could not win. By the end, Tyson had taken his belt and his aura. Tucker's undefeated record was gone, and so was the belief that he could rule the division. Tony Tucker never recovered from that loss. His career unraveled, marked by inconsistency and decline. He became another name in Tyson's long list of victims, remembered not for what he achieved, but for who defeated him. Perhaps the most heartbreaking story belongs to Marvis Frazier. Carrying the weight of a legendary surname, Marvis had talent and promise. He was carving his own path, slowly earning respect in the heavyweight division. 16 wins, only one loss. A future that seemed wide open. That future ended in less than 30 seconds. Mike Tyson exploded out his corner, unleashing a barrage of punches that left no room for defense. Marvis Frazier went down, stunned and helpless. The referee stepped in almost immediately. The fight was over before it had truly begun. Marvis Frazier was never the same. The knockout haunted him. 2 years later, he retired. The son of Joe Frazier faded quietly from the sport, his potential buried beneath one devastating moment. Tyson didn't just end his career. He ended the possibility of what it might have become. What makes Mike Tyson's legacy so haunting is not just the knockouts, but the aftermath. Fighters didn't simply lose fights to Tyson. They lost belief. They lost momentum. They lost the version of themselves that thought greatness was inevitable. Boxing is a sport built on confidence. Once that confidence is shattered, recovery is rare. Tyson's power was undeniable, but it was his presence that truly destroyed careers. The intimidation began long before the first punch. Opponents watched tapes of men collapsing, of champions being dismantled in minutes. They entered the ring already fighting doubt. Tyson sensed that doubt and fed on it. He was not invincible. History proved that later. But during his rise, during those years when his aura was at its peak, Mike Tyson was something boxing had never seen before and may never see again. He wasn't just a champion. He was a force that altered trajectories, a moment in time that separated those who passed through unscathed from those who were never the same. When people ask why Mike Tyson is remembered with such fear and fascination, the answer lies in these stories. In the men who came before him with dreams and left with silence. In the careers that ended not with age or injury, but with one fight against the baddest man on the planet. If you've made it this far, I want to hear your thoughts. Which Tyson fight do you believe truly destroyed a career beyond repair? And is there another moment from his rise that deserves its own deep dive? Share your opinion in the comments, and if you enjoy long-form boxing storytelling like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story from the brutal, unforgettable history of the ring. In the end, Mike Tyson's legacy cannot be measured only by belts, records, or the speed of his knockouts. Those things explain what he did, but they don't explain what he meant. Tyson was a dividing line in boxing history, a moment where potential met reality, and only one of them survived. For the fighters who stood across from him, the fight was never just about winning or losing. It was about whether the future they imagined for themselves would still exist when the final bell rang. Some entered the ring undefeated, convinced that skill, size, or intelligence would protect them. Others came in fueled by arrogance, hunger, or destiny, believing they were chosen to be the next great name in heavyweight boxing. But against Mike Tyson, belief alone was never enough. He stripped opponents of their confidence first, then their composure, and finally their place in the sport hierarchy. What remained afterward was not just defeat, but quiet understanding that something essential had been taken and could never be recovered. That is why so many careers collapsed after facing him. Boxing is built on momentum, on the fragile balance between fear and self-belief. Tyson shattered that balance. Even fighters who survived the fight physically often carry the damage long after, unable to reclaim the aura that once made them dangerous. The world moved on to the next contender, the next champion, while those men were left wrestling with the shadow of one night they could never escape. Mike Tyson would eventually be beaten, humbled, and humanized like every fighter before and after him. But that does not erase the truth of his rise. For a brief, terrifying window in boxing history, he was not just a heavyweight champion of the world. He was the end of the road. And for the fighters whose dreams ended under his fists, his name will forever mark the moment when everything they were building came crashing down. Him out, Michael Spinks didn't just lose a fight. He lost everything. His titles vanished. His invincibility shattered. His future evaporated. He never fought again. One night, one opponent, and a career that should have ended in celebration instead ended in silence. Mike Tyson didn't just beat Michael Spinks. He erased the ending to his story. If Spinks represented elegance undone, Buster Douglas represented ambition destroyed. Before their paths crossed, Douglas was riding a wave of momentum that made him dangerous and confident. He was young, undefeated, and fearless, the kind of challenger who believed that the old rules didn't apply to him. He wasn't supposed to fear Mike Tyson. He was supposed to challenge him. And for a brief moment, he even made people believe it might be possible. Douglas fought smart early. He didn't panic. He didn't crumble. He stood his ground, using movement and timing to frustrate Tyson. 4-2 rounds, he survived where others hadn't. That alone felt like a victory. But survival was never enough against Mike Tyson. Sooner or later, he always found you. In the third round, Tyson adjusted. He closed distance. He cut angles. Then the uppercut came. Clean. Devastating. Final. Douglas collapsed like a star burning out mid-sky, All promise extinguished in an instant. That was it. The future everyone talked about vanished. Douglas fought only a handful of times after that, and walked away from the sport before his prime had truly begun. At just 26 years old, his story was over, not because he lacked talent, but because he had crossed paths with a force that refused to let him grow. Then there was Donovan Ruddock, a man fueled by arrogance and aggression, a fighter who believed intimidation was power. Ruddock bulldozed through the division, leaving bodies behind him, speaking recklessly, daring anyone to stop him. He wanted the throne, and in his mind, Tyson was just another obstacle. He didn't just want to beat Mike Tyson. He wanted to dominate him, humiliate him, prove something to the world.